Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change your life. The Maamer for Pesach. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the last Maamer the Rebbe said. Not the last one that he gave out. The last one that he said, because you see here, it was said in 1989. Yeah, 1989, and after the Rebbe passed away, the Rebbe stopped saying Maamer. And something to say, like I said, my main sicha, but there was a guy in Shiur, Rabbi Tzibel, and he talks about that he was there, and everyone was like shocked. No one knew what was happening, and then they realized they were saying Maamer. So this is a very special Maamer. It's short, so we have plenty of time to try to do it. And basically, the summary of the Maamer is like this. The Rebbe talks about the Maamer of the Alter Rebbe, about the mitzvah of eating matzah, and why there's a question, because we say that the matzah we eat on Pesach, we say the matzah we eat is because the bread didn't have time to rise. The question is asked, what do you mean? I'm eating the matzah because the Jews were commanded to eat matzah. When we had the Korban Pesach in Mitzrayim, they had the obligation to eat matzah. So we get a whole discussion about that, and so the Rebbe summarizes the Alter Rebbe's Maamer, and then the Rebbe adds a chiddush that essentially what the Rebbe says is that the matzah that we're eating today is much greater, much greater, and he keeps on just showing how great it is than the original matzah. And I guess that means that when we eat matzah on Pesach, we'll be very excited because we realize how special it is. So that's the Maamer shot. We'll be learning from simply Chassidus, and everyone has it or have the access to it, and also to give explanations. Let's go. We're starting on page 3. Whoever has it. Yeah. So the Rebbe said this Maamer on the night following Yud Gimel Nisan, the Yetzirah of the Tzemach Tzedek, which is in the night of Yud Daled Nisan, birthday the Rambam in 1989. And it's good to pay attention to the birth of the Rambam, because right at the end of the Maamer he says something quoting from the Rambam. This Maamer is based on the statement of the Agada, which explains why we eat matzah on the night of Pesach. So we say the Agada states the matzah that we eat, which is on our Seder table. Why do we eat it? We eat it because the dough of our forefathers didn't have time to rise before the King of Kings revealed himself to them and redeemed them. So we say in the Agada, why do we eat matzah? It's because it didn't have time to rise before Hashem took us out. Meaning, and like here, I don't have to translate and just, it says it everything. So on a simple level, the Agada is telling us that we eat matzah on the night of Pesach because the Jews had started making bread in Mitzrayim, but their dough didn't have time to rise before they left. So therefore, the early option was to bake unleavened bread, matzah, after they left Mitzrayim. So he's saying the reason why we eat the matzah is on a simplistic level, not because we were commanded to eat matzah. It was just because the bread that we were making for the trip didn't have time to rise. So that's what we had. That's what we ate. So it happened to be matzah. However, this doesn't seem to be the actual reason for the mitzvah to eat matzah. While the Jews were still in Mitzrayim, Hashem commanded them to bring a Korban Pesach and to eat together with matzah. So therefore, the reason why we eat the matzah is because Hashem, when the Jews were in Mitzrayim, were given the mitzvah to eat matzah, not a Pesach. Isn't that the reason? That's what happened. The whole remembrance of Pesach is the whole Yitzias Mitzrayim is remembering what happened. So what happened? So we're thinking to ourselves that thousands of years ago, the Yidden were sitting there by the Seder night, their own Seder night, eating Korban Pesach and matzah. Why? They were eating the matzah because Hashem told them to eat matzah. It was a mitzvah they had. But we're saying the reason we're eating the matzah is because when we left Egypt, which is later, it didn't have time to rise the bread, so we ate matzah. No mitzvah, nothing. Essentially, we're just saying it's a haphazard thing. Like it just happened to be that the dough didn't rise. That's why we're eating matzah, which is confusing because I thought we're eating it because of the mitzvah. So commentaries on the Agada. So if so, why does the Agada say that the matzah we eat due to the latter circumstantial reason is the fact that the dough didn't have time to rise? So why are we saying that's why we're eating the matzah? Commentators on Agada offer various answers to this question. So according to Nigla, they revealed the dimension of Torah. However, so they answered according to Nigla. But the Rebbeim Starting the Alter Rebbe, which is what we're going to discuss, offer a deep explanation according to Chassidus. So just to clarify, the question is, we say in Agada, Matza Zu, this matzah that we eat is Al Shema. Why? It's because it didn't have time to rise. Well, we were leaving in haste, and the dough didn't have time to rise, so that's why we eat matzah. In commemoration of the fact it didn't have time to rise. But the question is, what do you mean? Aren't we eating it because when the Jews were in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, before they left, were commanded to eat matzah with the carbon Pesach? So isn't that why we're eating it? So why are we saying a different answer? So the Alter explains that when the Torah states that the mitzvah to eat matzah, which happened before midnight, meaning when they were still in Egypt, which was the time of the plague of the firstborns, it spells the word matzahs without the letter vav. So now we're going to discuss this letter vav. That there's two times, or probably a few times, but there's two times we're discussing that matzah is written, and it's mem tzadik hey, mem tzadik saf. That's matzah, or you can read it in mem tzadik vav saf. So there's a vav. So we're going to discuss what's the difference. In the first month, so it says in the Pesach, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening, this is the before chatzos, before midnight, you shall eat matzahs until the 21st day of the month in the evening. However, and so the mitzvah is on the first night to eat matzah. There's no mitzvah technically to eat matzah the rest of the time. So on the first night there's a mitzvah to eat matzah. So what does it say? If you have the book, it shows the matzahs without a vav. This is the one before chatzos. So however, when it describes the matzahs that the Jews baked on their way out of Mitzrayim after midnight, it spells the word matzahs with the letter vav. They baked the dough that they had taken out of Mitzrayim as matzahs, for it had not leavened, for they were driven out of Mitzrayim and they could not wait. And also they had not made provisions for themselves. And over there it says matzahs with a vav. After they left Mitzrayim, as they were going out of Egypt, and they didn't have time to bake their breads for the trip. So the letter vav is formed. So what's a vav? So now we're saying that we see that there's two types of matzah. There's matzah before midnight and matzah after midnight. Well, what's the difference? On a simplistic level, the difference is before midnight, it's without a vav, and after midnight, it's with a vav. So what's the vav? So the letter vav is formed by starting with a yud, and then drawing a line downwards from the yud. Chassidus explains that the vav has this shape because it represents the drawing down of the initial revelation of godliness represented by the yud into creation. So vav is hamshacha, is drawing down, is taking from above to below, and this is what this vav represents. So the Alter explains why only the first midnight matzah is written above. So now that we understand a vav is this idea of hamshacha, of drawing down. So why after midnight it has a vav, and before midnight doesn't have a vav in the word matzahs? So the commandment to eat matzah stated that the matzah should be eaten before midnight, together with the carbon Pesach. At this time, the Jews were still in Mitzrayim, and it was before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, revealed Himself to them. So therefore, since the matzah was eaten before the drawing down of godliness, before God revealed Himself into the world, before He redeemed them, at midnight, the Torah wrote the word matzah without a vav. So what's the vav? It's the representation of the drawing down, the hamshacha, the drawing down that happened when God came and revealed Himself. So before midnight, God didn't reveal Himself. He didn't come and redeem the Jewish people. So therefore, it doesn't have that vav. That vav that it lacked, the before midnight matzah lacked God's revelation. Yes, the Alter explains why only. Yeah, we said that. Huh? Yeah. However, the pasuk which describes the matzah which they baked and ate after they left Mitzrayim took place after midnight, which is after the revelation of godliness, after Hashem revealed Himself. So represented by the vav. Therefore, in this pasuk, the word matzah was written with a vav. That's why now it has the vav, because it has God's revelation involved. God revealing Himself to the Jewish people and helping them come out. So that's the difference. That's why before chatzos doesn't have a vav, it doesn't have God's revelation, and after chatzos it does have God's revelation. So the difference between the pre-midnight and post-midnight matzah also explains another change in the way that Pesukim describe the two types of matzahs. So there's also another difference. It's not just that it says in the pasuk It's not just that it says a matzah without a vav before midnight and with a vav after midnight, but also there's something about the matzah itself. So when describing the pre-midnight matzahs, Hashem tells the Jews to guard the matzahs to prevent them from becoming chametz. Before midnight, Hashem says you have to guard. Ushmartem es hamatzah, you should guard the matzahs. Ki betzma yem hazeh yitesi es tzivisechem me'eretz Mitzrayim. On that day, I took you out of Mitzrayim. Ushmartem es hayem hazeh, you should guard it. Tzivisechem chutz lam is an everlasting statue. But he's saying you should guard the matzahs. So shmartem es hamatzahs, you should guard the matzahs. What are you guarding it from? From making sure it doesn't become chametz. And that's before midnight. But when it talks about in the pasuk about the matzah that's after midnight, after God revealed himself, the matzah with the vav, what does it say? It says they baked the dough that they had taken out of Mitzrayim as matzahs, for it had not leavened. For they were driven out of Mitzrayim and they could not wait, and also they had not made provisions for themselves. It says it could not, for it had not leavened, it had not risen. So when dough rises, it becomes inflated and puffed up. Okay, so what is he saying here? He's saying the difference, another difference, not just the matzahs have without a vav before midnight and with a vav after midnight, but before midnight, you have to guard it from becoming chametz. Whereas after midnight, you don't have to guard it from becoming chametz. Because it says it had not leavened. They didn't do anything to make it not rise. It by itself didn't rise. So he's going to explain what this means in spiritual terms. So when the dough rises, it becomes inflated and puffed up, which represents the negative attributes of pride. The root of pride is the attribution of one's own good qualities and one's own self, effectively denying one's complete reliance on Hashem. And on a deeper level, denying the fact that Hashem is the only true existence. So this mistake is only possible when Hashem is concealed from creation, which enables creation to perceive itself as independent from him. So we're saying what's essentially the matzah, the rising, the dough. The dough is the puffed up, inflated self, feeling separate, feeling separated from God. And it's a long discussion, and we actually talked about this a little bit in the Purim Maamer, the Haman, the same thing, the same type of thing. What's the ego that we represent by the chametz is the feeling. When it's puffed up, it means it has this feeling of separateness. Essentially, the issue that comes into our lives, it all stems from a feeling of separateness. Separateness b'chlal in friends and family and things like this, but also separation from God. That we feel that there's us and there's God, and we're two separate entities. And it's not, this is just a reality. But it's hard because you don't see godliness at all. It's very difficult. And you see yourself and you see the world around you, and there's so much going on, and so it feels like it's very separated. But really, that's probably the cause of all our problems, when we feel that separation from godliness. Whereas when we don't feel that separation from godliness, when you have the bittul, the matzah, you feel one with God, and that's also why matzah brings faith. It brings that connection. You realize that God is everywhere and God is in every single situation. It calls you not to stress. It calls you to relax. It calls you to appreciate life and appreciate every single thing that happened to you. And that's essentially the difference between the before midnight matzah and the after midnight matzah. The before midnight matzah, before God revealed himself to the Jewish people, so that to make matzah, that to guard the matzah, to make sure that it wouldn't become leaven, meaning make sure the ego didn't get in the way. Because the possibility of the ego getting in the way, the possibility of feeling the separate existence from God was very easy, because God didn't reveal himself yet. Whereas after midnight, after God revealed himself, after godliness was tangible, was obvious, so then it was very easy. And therefore, they didn't have to guard the matzah from becoming chametz. By itself, it didn't become chametz. Meaning, it didn't have the possibility. When you see godliness so apparent, so you can't deny it. And so then it's obvious to you. So you didn't have to watch out getting that feeling of separated from godliness, that there's me and there's God. That possibility didn't exist because it was so clear and obvious. And we're going to keep on discussing this, because essentially, remember, with this information, you can try to figure out for yourselves that our question originally was, why are we saying that the matzah that we eat on the night of Pesach is the matzah that was after God revealed himself, the matzah with the vav? If we're talking about the matzah if we're talking about the matzah that happened then, which was the matzah before, it was before God revealed himself, the matzah without the vav, the matzah we had to God. So why are we saying that it's matzah with the vav? And you can try to figure out for yourselves. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll continue tomorrow.